let's begin our first Final Fantasy 16 story dive. Of course, I'm going to start with story. That's exactly what I love about Final Fantasies. That's why I play them. I'm sure that's the same for many of you guys. So that's what I'm most intrigued with. And indeed, with Yoshi P and Takai, the 14 crew working on this, story's what we're going to get. We're going to get it, man. We're going to get fleshed out characters. We're going to get story arches. Of all of that, I am certain. So let's begin here. And quickly before I start, of course, there's so much we don't know yet. There's names, there's places, there's context of allegiances and the characters that we don't fully know. Even a lot of names that I'm going to have to theorize and... Well, I won't theorize the names. I'll put placeholder names in and I will make some assumptions, but I'll let you know when I'm doing it as we go through what is actually surprisingly quite a lot that we can glean from that trailer. It was pretty meaty. There's quite a lot. So let's dive straight in with the most simple. Our new protagonist. Woohoo! The 16th protagonist of Final Fantasy. There he is. I gotta say, some people saying they wanted a female for this. I was kind of leaning that way. Honestly, I'm not that fussed. Here's another Sasuke Noctis / Zeldris looking mofo. But I actually think he looks pretty cool, and I definitely like the aspect that we see the older, more grizzled, more haggard version of him. A bit more cynical and dark side. But we shall call him, for the sake of this video, let's just call him Shield. So we have Shield, our new protagonist. It's the best fitting name because that is what he declares to us is his role in this game. He is the shield of Joshua, this young boy who is the only name we do have. Immediately Final Fantasy 15-ish, Gladiolus, Corleonus, Clarus, they were all the king's shields. And what we very quickly see is that Joshua has a pretty rough childhood upbringing. He's not allowed out the house. That's declared to us by the Archduke's wife, or Joshua's mother, when she comes out. He's not supposed to be outside. And actually, I'm going to jump in with the speculation straight away here. The reason for that comes twofold. One, it could easily be the paranoia that she has, that, of course, her son is the Phoenix. Her son is the Phoenix. Most likely. I know some people, based on how this trailer has been cut up, whenever we watch trailers, we think that these things are happening chronologically, or our brains do. But it's most likely not the case. And that's kind of what have led people to, I think, them thinking that Joshua is Ifrit. I don't think he is. I think it's pretty certain that he is the Phoenix at this. No, not only do we have the scene where the guards say the Archduke's son's the Phoenix, we also see Joshua use Phoenix's ability on Shield's hand. It's like an injury. And he uses the regeneration fire. Keep those words in mind. Regeneration fire. Healing fire. Protection fire. Anyway, that's one reason why, of course, I think the mother could be paranoid and be like, you got to get your booty inside, boy. The second reason could be this blight. So in Homeland and potentially this world, there was something called a blight. And I say that just because the mother is covering her face when she talks to the son. So what I'm wondering is she just paranoid that she's outside and she doesn't want the blight, or she doesn't want to pass the blight to her son, and that's why she's covering the mouth? Coronavirus and face masks have got me picking up on that stuff. Maybe, but there is a blight. Exactly how it works, if it's anything like the Star Scourge in 15, who freaking knows? A blight is basically medieval peasants saying we don't know what the fuck it is. That's what that is. So how that operates into the story, don't know too much, but let's get straight back to the juice bar. And I've got to say, I'm going to have to do this video in 2 parts. There's probably too much here to cover in just one video, so if I suddenly cut to the second video, just go click it, it's definitely out there. But what I've been able to speculate is Joshua is protected by S.H.I.E.L.D. Then for some reason S.H.I.E.L.D. has to go to war. Pretext to war to me seems like the blight. The reason for that is because this Regis looking dude, who I strongly think is the Archduke. The thing is, S.H.I.E.L.D. says something similar when he's younger. He says the enemy will not relinquish their mother crystal without a fight. So what we can immediately assume based on that is that there are crystals. There's multiple crystals, each nation probably having their own. Maybe that crystal is housed within the icon that seems to be representing each one of these factions, or being used by the factions. That's the thing. How each faction is sort of ideologically based around their summon, which I think is such a cool idea. Whether they kind of worship their summon or they use their summon in like an abusive way, just like a machine of war. But of course, what is attached to these summons are deviants. Yes, deviants. Now, the deviants, what I and many other people are speculating, are the children, potentially, that allow the icon to be summoned, to be channeled. I don't think it's the case that the deviant transforms into the summon. I think it's more likely the case that they call them. Now, the reason why I say children is simply because, of course, Joshua is the Phoenix's deviant. And when we find out that in the fight against Shiva and Titan, again, one faction summoned their Titan and thinks, well, that's not an icon, it's a bleeding mountain. And then they summon their Shivas. What we find out is that Shield is all of a sudden, he's gone to war. He's gone to this war. We see him, he's sat there, he's looking shaggy, a little bit older. And he's first got his face tattoo. And the guard tells him that it's their job to go get the deviant. And they say, do we even know that the girl is among them? So the description of girl makes me think an innocent young girl. And I mean, that's just such a cool theme, like tremendous, world-destroying, apocalyptic, like power of the summons, tethered to the innocence of these children. Ooh, that could get so dark. And that is where the moral quandary of these wars could sort of really come into play, because what we see immediately is Shield is not vibing with what he's being told to do on this mission. And the guy has to tell him, ours is not to ask questions, it's to follow orders. What if, straight into the speculation, Shield is being ordered to go kill this young deviant girl? Maybe they're asleep, and I think they are asleep. And this is why I don't think they transform into the summon, because of course what we see later on with the whole Phoenix and Ifrit scene is we see someone scream, Joshua, wake up. But I'm already skipping ahead. Back to this. Maybe if they find the girl while she's sleeping and they kill her, Shiva gets dispelled, so to speak. And this is really where I could see Shield starting to become more and more tested. This is where I can see him really starting to fall apart. I really think that they're going to bring this character low through what is definitely going to be a dark, great story. There's blood strewn up toddlers' faces, death. The death count for this first trailer is already at like 6 or 7. Actually, there's battle scenes. It's probably way more than that. And maybe it's the case that he meets the deviant, and through meeting and connecting with them, that he actually gains their power. Now, of course, I say this because we see Shield fighting with what looks like Garuda or Bahamut's claws, Phoenix's wing, and Titan's fists. And I love this notion that, and I still would like us to summon summons, but maybe we'll see them enough in cinematics that instead of maybe summoning them in combat, that we get their power and then it gives us a whole new fighting stance. With that element, with that sort of summons kind of style brought into the combat. Oh, beautiful. And I'm just going to say, all of this immediately sounds very plausible, especially with Final Fantasy XIV. You know, that they did it where like innocents, not necessarily innocents, but people who we had connections with becoming these summons, and that these summons are terrible beings that have to be destroyed, even though there's so much nuance to them. Like both the Scions and the Empire in 14 agree we got to destroy them. And I don't think that theme is any different here. I just think it's more difficult because there's children involved. And the reason why I say the summons are bad, even though they use them more, is because we see the line saying that the crystals have shaped our history for all these years, but no longer. And maybe that's what Shield is here about trying to do. Maybe he doesn't kill the children and he actually somehow takes their power to summon the icons. He takes it for himself, maybe, and then screw it, maybe we might have to, he gets all the summon power and he has to kill himself at the end to end the line of the crystals. Shit. Too not to see. Anyway. So immediately we've got this pretense to war, crystals to resolve the blight. And we don't exactly know what factions are aligned to who. What I'm going to say is the Archduke clearly has this feathery lady who seems like a real serpent in the grass. I'm going to say 1 minute she's talking to him. The context being that the Archduke is saying that they don't have the crystal to fight from the blight. Then we go to this scene in the tent where some faction, whether it could be Titan's factions, Shiva's one, whoever they are, saying that you promised to lend us your swords. So she seems like she could be like a real snake in the grass, like making promises. Maybe like she has some sort of motivation. I'm just gonna quickly say we don't really know many factions. All we kind of really know is that the initial attackers who come into Homeland are these judge guys, and these guys are called Imperial Vipers. Imperial Vipers. Now, based on the fact they look like judges, I can imagine them being like an elite assassination, like task force. That's the Dragoon that we see Shield fighting against. So Imperial Vipers, immediately Imperial. We're fighting some other Imperial nation. So Homeland versus Imperials. They want to take out the Imperials Deviant, and that's why Shield goes to war. But they come and they try to take out Homelands, which is of course Joshua. And I think they get pretty much close. And this is why I think that this guy is the Archduke, because he's dressed the same as him, the Regis looking mofo. And he dies protecting his son. I think so. Poor Joshua gets his dad's blood splat up his face. And this is why I think the whole scene with Ifrit and Phoenix makes way more sense. Again, I could be wrong based on how the trailer's cut, but what I think happens is Shield gets separated from Joshua fighting Imperial Vipers. His dad then dies defending his son. Shield then looks like he's trying to run into the building to try to get to Joshua, but Joshua is lost. What I think is this Barsh looking guy is the guard protecting Joshua at this point, and that he then gets cut off with this amorphous looking thing. Barsh then tries to I'm actually gonna call him Barsh, tries to stand against the amorphous flame thing, and that's when it sends the pillar of fire up into the air. And what he says is, a second icon of fire, impossible. So that immediately says that Ifrit is not a known icon, and that probably they assumed that every element only had one icon associated with it. So how can there be two? And the fact that then Phoenix and Ifrit are the logo of this game. I'm just going to say, I've been doing whole videos on purple and yellow, of course, because it's the main color theme of FF7 Remake that is representing the diametrically opposed themes, positions, corruption and goodness, mercy, judgment, clarity, non-clarity. You know, you've probably seen the videos. So to see this color theme, I'm like, oh buddy, and it immediately makes sense. If Joshua is Phoenix, and after this scene, Barsh is here while Ifrit's getting summoned, and that's the thing, whatever this amorphous flame thing is, I could see this as being the Deviant. And I think this could be the first Deviant that isn't a child. Like, it's got like a man-sized body, looks really freaking evil. Maybe this is a Deviant that is bad intention, like an ancient evil, a villain of some sort, and that he's here to take out the Phoenix, who he would see as the imposter of being the fire icon, the god of fire on this planet. And in its attempt to kill Joshua, Joshua gets cut off from Barsh and Shield. He gets surrounded. That's when he freaks out, whether it's over his father's death. The Phoenix power comes flying out, and I think that what's more likely is that they then pass out. Like they maybe go into a coma or something while the summon then comes. That's the setup to the whole scene. That seems far more likely, and that the shouting of Joshua wake up could be a bit misleading, the way it's cut into, you know, Shiva, Ifrit's tearing out what's probably Barsh's giblets. Probably Barsh's spleen getting torn out there, but the Joshua wake up, I could imagine, like while Phoenix is there. And maybe it's going crazy against Ifrit, maybe it's causing too much destruction, or maybe it takes a real toll, like summoning that way, and he's trying to wake Joshua up so that he can stop being Phoenix, or channeling Phoenix. Anyway, the fight goes down. It looks pretty freaking sweet, and the last point I'll leave off on before we move on to part 2 is the immediate theme that jumps out with Phoenix fighting Ifrit is their opposites of magic. Of course they are. No, we see Joshua to use his healing. Phoenix's fire is associated with protection, regeneration, rejuvenation, rising from the ashes, creation. Whereas Ifrit's is a dark magic. It's destruction, it's chaos, it's death. It's essentially the opposite kind of fire magic. And this being the logo, that this is the dynamic we're seeing. But there's so much more I want to cover on that. Shuffle on to part 2. We're going to continue the story dive.